am a teacher. And when I first started teaching at the university level, like I had been in the public schools of Greenville County for 7 years, so I was used to immediately going, somebody didn't get that. So it was like, did you get that? You know, so I was used to that. And then when I started teaching adults, I was like, oh no, I gotta sit back here and I can't interact. Because you know, they're scared adults. And then it dawned on me, you know, we have to keep that interaction going because if I'm teaching you how to teach, I've got to teach the way I would have taught if I was with students. So I try to make these as practical and hands-on as I can. I do several different sessions depending where I'm at. And I was like, okay, Lord, time management, which one of these hours and hours of seminars and things that I have should I use? And these were the ones that immediately popped into my mind. It's kind of cool because this morning when I got up, the verses that were in my devotions were again Romans 12, 1 and 2, to renew your mind and focus on your mind. And so we'll jump into some of that. And then just thinking about how to make that practical in your own lives, but also in working with your kids. So one other thing that's going to start happening here as we go is every now and then my phone's going to go off. And I'm doing that on purpose because I'm teaching you about attention and what happens to your attention or whether or not you're paying attention. So first of all, we're going to talk about attention for just a second. Attention has two aspects. One is selective. I'm focused on you right now. You've got my full attention. That's selective. And then the other is sustained. How long can I hold my focus on just her or my focus on some activity? And when you're working with your kids, you want them to learn sustained attention for certain things, especially like meditating on scripture or learning truth or those kind of things. You want that sustained attention. But life happens. And the phone will go off or something else will go off. And so later on I'm going to be talking about self-management techniques and some of the cueing things and that kind of stuff. But this is one of them where you get to self-monitor yourself. So as we're going along, and my phone just happens to go off, and I've intentionally just set it at arbitrary times. You're just going to keep a mark somewhere on your papers here once I hand them out to you as to whether or not you were actually paying attention to me, or were you distracted by maybe a baby crying over there, or did something about things going on at home pop into your head? Were you paying attention to me, so attending or not attending? And just kind of little keep a track going. You can teach your kids to do this too. And then there's the first one. Were you paying attention to me? Were you distracted by her? You know, just the different things. So, and that's what you're going to do with that little piece. And you can do this with your kids. Like you can set a timer for an hour and just have it going off at random times. Not every 5 minutes because they're going to start to maybe anticipate, but random times. And then they start to go, man, Mom, I got a serious attention problem. Or not. And you can do this even with littles, or you can do it with a little bit bigger ages, older ages. Okay, so a couple things. How many of you learn better by just listening and having all the stuff in front of you? All the notes in front of you. Okay, so I've done the notes 2 different ways, and I have one here in yellow too to talk about that. Anybody else want all the notes in front of them?
I will.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is, it's the notes are all in front of you, but I also have, it's called closed procedure. It's fill in the blank. And this is something you can do with your kids that actually aids in comprehension, where they've got part of it and you're kind of trying to anticipate what the next word is, and then when somebody says something, you go, oh, okay, sort of what I was thinking, but so you're teaching them to develop abstract thinking and the kind of stuff with this. So I'm going to send both of these around. You can pick and choose which one you want. It's both the same thing. One has all the words and stuff in it. The other one has it where you get to fill it in as I'm talking. The other thing about filling in as I'm talking is sometimes you gain more comprehension because you've had to write something down rather than just sitting, paying attention. So you can kind of think your way through that piece too. So when these come around, these 2 sheets, pick which one you want. And do you know what this one?
That's great.
Okay, all right. Pick which one you want and take that around. And yeah, I'll leave that around. Well, hold on. Yeah, that for a second. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to pray. I never take it for granted that God allows me to share many of the things that God has shown me over the years, and we always need God's help and strength, right? Thank you, Lord Jesus, for the opportunity to be here. Thank you for these ladies and gentlemen and their desire to teach their children. Wow, what a privilege you have given them as parents to teach their children. And your word has commanded that they are the first people who are supposed to teach their children. And so I ask that we would have a beneficial time together, that we would learn and grow together as we walk our way through some of these ideas. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. All right, so some places you go, they want to know a little bit of who you are, so I just stuck all that stuff up there, but I really don't want to spend too much time on that, other than to tell you I was a missionary kid, I was born in Ethiopia, and I went to New Brunswick Bible Institute and got my biblical certificate there. Then I spent a year in a home here in the area, taking care of helping with foster parents. And then I ended up at Washington Bible College and got my bachelor's degree, in counseling. And then at that point, through an amazing set of circumstances, God took me to a home in New Hampshire where I worked with abused and neglected kids for 7 years. And I have tons of stories from there. 69 different girls came through that home. And everything that's going on now, I won't get on my soapbox, but it just enrages me what's happening in the public schools and in the venues and different things. And thank God, literally, that you guys are keeping your children at home. Because it's horrible. I had, when I was still teaching in Greenville County, I had people say to me, like some Christian families came in and, well, we need the extra special ed help, so should we bring our kid into the public school? And I said, if you have the option of keeping your child at home, don't put them here. They're going to learn way too much. I was just talking to one lady here before the session started, and she's telling me stuff that they've already, her kid has learned from being in the public school because they did a part of families at home, part of it out. It's garbage out there, unfortunately. Thankfully, there are a few Christian teachers still in that venue, and God has to call you to do that because it takes a lot of energy to fight against the challenges that are out there. But I love that you guys have the kids at home. That's just amazing. So worked there. Then I went back to Bob Jones and got a master's degree in special education. And thought I was going back to New Hampshire to do stuff there. And the Lord said, no, you're going to go to Greenville County. And again, like, all these stories, if I had the time to tell you the whole way that God led me, it was just incredible, every step of the way. So I ended up in Greenville County for 7 years, 3 years in 3rd through 5th grade in emotional handicap classroom. And then 4 years in 6th through 8th grade, learning to save the classroom. And just tons of amazing stories there. Then I, through God's leading, ended up back at Bob Jones, teaching the special ed methods courses. So that's why I've got all these reams and reams of things to do, and I always go, okay, what's the theme? So it helped to know what the theme was, because I thought, okay, I can do something on that theme. And then now, because I was born in Ethiopia, we picked up a parasite over there. I can't give it to you. I have to be in Ethiopia, in the water, at a certain time of year to get it, and we did. And so my brother Stephen and I have way more liver damage and that kind of stuff than my sister and my other brother. But it makes it so, that's why I'm sitting in the chair, like I can't stand for hours at a time, that kind of stuff. I just don't have the energy anymore. And by the way, can you guys hear me at the back? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Do I need to put on the teacher voice? That's the one thing people say, your voice goes low and then I can't hear you anymore. So now my primary thing is I'm taking care of my mom 24/7 with my sister. She took a major turn here in April, and so that's what I'm doing right now. There it goes again. And you just put on your thing, were you paying attention or not? Engaged? Did your mind go somewhere else? And then sometimes I can squeeze out if I've got things scheduled, like Roses with Mom right now. So I can come out and do some of these things once in a while. Right now I have to be kind of selective with what I do outside of taking care of Mom, which is okay. So if you're going to be managing yourself, if you're going to be managing your children, if you're going to teach them what it means to be successful in life, you have to start with what you think. So Romans 12, 1 and 2, I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your body as a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service of worship. And don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind and the way you think. And as homeschooling parents, you guys don't really have the benefit, unless you do these kind of things, of sitting down with other teachers and going, okay, this is a terrible day, everything went wrong. You never had those days, right? And, as a teacher, we could do that. But you guys, you need these kind of days to go, okay, my kids are great today. No, they're terrible. Like, it's just not working, right? Because those days happen. And you have to recognize that even if it feels like a bad day, God is still working. God is doing amazing things in your kids' lives. And they're learning from your mistakes as well as the good things that you do. So just a few little things for you to think about, but also as you're working with your kids. Negative beliefs cause a lack of ability to learn and no growth. Positive beliefs, God has not given us a spirit of fear. Oh no, I can't teach my kids. I'm not capable. I can't do this. That's not from the Lord. That's the devil trying to discourage you from what you're trying to do with your kids, okay? God has given you that power. God has given you that love. He's given you that sound mind. And I didn't put the verse up here, but, in the Old Testament, in Deuteronomy especially, I think it's Deuteronomy 6, where it talks about as you're walking, as you're sitting, as you're standing, you parents are the ones who are supposed to be teaching your kids, right? So, positively, and I just quoted that one for you. And then Philippians 4:8, think positively. Think about the positive things. As much as we focus on all the negative stuff that's happening right now, every day we have to intentionally think, no, what's true, what's right, what's godly, what can I teach my kids, what can I help them to learn? But positive beliefs cause an ability to learn and grow. Jesus said, focus on things that are honest and true, right? So, first negative thing is we don't want to admit when we're weak or when we're making mistakes. Our kids certainly don't want to do that. But we as parents, sometimes we learn more from our parents. I remember one time my mom coming back and asking forgiveness for something. And I went, what? Oh, that's what you're supposed to do. Okay. And just learning to, I had a situation in Greenville County where I had a bad day with a kid. And so all the way to school the next day, I'm like, I really have got to ask that girl's forgiveness because I was just kind of battling it. But I thought, no, I'm going to do it. So before class started, I pulled her in for a minute and I said, I just need your asking forgiveness. And she said, God uses these things in crazy ways, right? Mm-hmm. So she said, oh, I thought you were going to tell me about so-and-so or ask me about so-and-so. And I went, what's going on with so-and-so? Well, they passed out in the bathroom. I said, really? Yeah, they drank too much alcohol. So the short version is, because I was willing to go and ask forgiveness of this student, she let me know about a girl who was in a huge medical crisis, so I could go contact the administration and get that taken care of. Because I submitted and said, Lord, I'm going to ask this girl forgiveness. But at the same time, just developing that relationship with her as well. So things that we do with our kids, admitting that we've done something wrong or we've made a mistake, teaches them. And folks, I'm kind of crazy about this one. People go, Ruth, no. Don't teach them to say I'm sorry. The Bible doesn't have I'm sorry anywhere. It does have, please forgive me. Do you know how incredibly easy it is to say I'm sorry? And how profoundly difficult it is to say, please forgive me. Because the other person, you've now given that other person the power to either say no or, okay, yes, I will. Like it creates a whole different level of humility when we ask forgiveness as opposed to just saying, I'm sorry, because I'm sorry just, it does not create the relationship. Okay, so yes, admit our mistakes, learn from our mistakes. We learn way more from our mistakes, right? Edison took 1,000 times to find the light bulb. Next one, speed is important. I gotta get her done. I'm on an agenda. Everything's gotta happen. Any of your kids like that? Yeah. We've grown up in a society that does that. I'm kind of thankful that I grew up in Ethiopia because it's a way more laid-back society. The pace is way slower. So then you come here and even today when she said, well, it's going to kind of be 11-ish, I went, this is more my style. Because I've been in a lot of conferences where, okay, 11 o'clock, start, keep going, and it's good. You need that discipline, but at the same sometimes it can be a challenge. Perseverance.
I learned a while ago that hurry hurts. Hurry
That's good.
hurts kids. So I think about that a lot.
Hurry hurts. There is a book out there called The Hurried Child. It's an interesting read. Perseverance, accuracy, and faithfulness and dependability is what's important. I was watching something on finances the other day about building your finances, and this famous person actually said, the turtle still always wins. There we go, there's a little check. Turtle still always wins. Just sticking with it. I have gone through some crazy medical things, and I learned in all new ways when my father died in 2020 that you take one day at a time. We could look at the next 6 months of the next year, go, but God has only given us grace today. So we have to take that grace for today, because I don't have the strength for the next 6 months. I just pray for the strength for the next few hours, right? And as parents raising your kids, often you're doing that, right? And that's biblical. It's, you take one day at a time. You ask the Lord for strength today, because, Lamentations 3. His mercies are new next week, next month? No. Every morning. Great is his faithfulness. So, yeah, it's one day at a time. Practice does not always make perfect. I actually didn't put this on your charts there. Perfect practice makes permanent. Let me say this again. Practice does not always make perfect. Practice does make permanent. So perfect practice makes perfectly permanent. So you can tell your kid to practice something wrong. Like this was one thing that drove me nuts with homework. You'd send kids home with homework, and they didn't know how to do it. So then they'd sit there at home and practice the whole thing wrong 20 times, and then the next day you got to spend the whole time undoing it. Well, you as parents, thankfully, could go, wait, you're not getting that. Let's stop for a second. We need to re-look at this, reevaluate this, see if it's, do it a little different way. So, because if you practice wrong, it's permanent. It takes a lot more to undo. Am I going too fast, people? Filling in? All right, okay. So growth mindset, I can work, it didn't stay there. Why didn't it stay there? Should have stayed there. It's supposed to be, I can do it. I can work alone and do it myself. Where do you see that in the Bible? In Proverbs it says, a man who isolates himself seeks his own desire. It's actually selfishness to say I'm going to work alone all by myself. In order to really be effective, so it should be good students ask for help and feedback from parents, peers, and teachers, whoever the teachers happen to be. So good students ask for help and feedback from parents, peers, or teachers. I haven't run this slide for a bit, so I don't know why it's too heavy. Yeah. I'm getting used to clicking too, my bad. Negatively, my IQ is what makes me successful. Have you ever been thinking, okay, I'm just a parent, I don't have the degrees and certifications, and I used to have parents come in to me, and their kids are teenagers now, and they said, well, you're the expert, you tell me what to do. I'm like, you've lived with your child for 14 years? I'm not an expert on your child, I have no clue. Let me sit down with them, let me spend some time with them, then I might be able to give you some ideas, but you need to tell me the ideas first, because you spend a lot more time with them. So then I'd spend the time asking. One of my favorite verses is Proverbs, I think 18:13, if I've got the reference right. He who answers a matter before he hears it, it's a shame and a folly to him. We have to ask a lot of questions, a ton of questions. Now, sometimes you can drive your kids nuts, so you have to be careful how many questions you ask, because especially if they have an auditory or an oral expression. I was actually talking to a lady yesterday. She called me and said, what do I do with my son? He can't express himself orally. I said, well, do visuals, do word pictures. Ask him to tell you a word picture or something like that. He might be able to do it that way. But we have to ask the questions. Another quick story for you. Working in grade, no, actually I was working at Bob Jones at this point. And working with this one munchkin who has significant comprehension challenges. And but if you sat down and you made sure he got it, and he got it. When I got him, they brought him to me in 8th grade, and he was failing every class. So I only had him for 1 hour a day to try to rebuild this poor guy's confidence. So I kept him for that 1 hour, and then they gave me for math as well, because math was an area of struggle. And anyway, so one day he didn't come to class, and I went in to the principal, and the principal's like, why isn't he here? I said, why isn't he in my classroom? And he's like, he's in trouble. He disobeyed them on the playground. And I said, really? What happened? He said, well, it's cold out there, and they were playing gym, and he refused to get into the game. He went over and stood in the sun and would not be part of the game. Well, the coach said, you need to get into the game and run around, because that's going to warm you up. Well, because I've been through what I've been through health-wise, I know at certain points when your health is completely off, you can do whatever you want to. Your body is not going to warm up. So I thought, that's interesting. So I said, can I just check with his mom? Let me call his mom. So I called his mom and I said, I have a question for you. Does Munchkin wear a coat in the summer? And she said, well, actually, now that you mention it, yeah, it can be 80 degrees out and he's still got a coat on. He's cold. I said, that's it. So I called my twin sister and I said, hey, because she's an advanced care paramedic. And so I said, hey, any reason why a kid would be cold in the middle of the summer? And she said, well, his hemoglobin might be low or something like that. And I said, you might actually. So I called back the parent and I said, hey, you might want to consider just getting him to have like a routine blood work or something like that. And they did actually find something. But I went back to the principal and I said, actually, this child was demonstrating the need for survival. He wasn't trying to be belligerent and in your face and disrespectful. He knew that the only way he could stay warm was to stand in the sun because it was cold enough that he couldn't get warm any other way. And unfortunately, because he'd had 7 years of teachers, sadly, who didn't ask enough questions, he had developed this, I'm not going to say anything, I'm just going to hide in the corner. And they took that as rebellion, when in actual fact for him it had become a survival thing. I'm telling you some of these stories because sometimes we as parents, we're so used to our kid, we're seeing them and we forget, and sometimes we forget and go, maybe I need to ask that, or run it by somebody else and say, hey, does your kid do? And like I said, like when I was in Greenville County, we had the ability to do the swapping ideas thing, so it pays to ask each other. I'm glad you guys have this co-op where you can call each other stuff. So on this one, my IQ makes me successful? No. I've known incredibly intelligent people who were just lazier than all get up and couldn't do anything. My effort, my consistency, my use of effective strategies is what makes me successful. And then only brilliant, rich people achieve success? No. Everybody can be a winner if they work at it. Hard work beats talent when talent won't work hard. How many of you know Tim Tebow? How many of you know that he has a learning disability? Yeah, he severely struggles with reading. You didn't know that though, right? Because look what God has allowed him to do. He didn't let reading stop him. Okay, that's pretty cool. Okay, so that's your thinking. Now we're going to switch gears to, let's see. Yeah. A little bit with the time management, okay? So I've got a chart in front of you, and it's got 4 different categories there, and I'm going to kind of explain it. So you've got urgent and important. You should only spend 10% of your time in this category. So somebody calls you and they've had a car accident. That's urgent and important, okay? So you've got to go and help them out, right? But then there's other things that are not urgent, but they are important. So you're sitting here in this session, and I mention something, and you go, oh, when I get home, I want to try to implement that. So it's very important, right? It's something I should have done that. I got to do this with my kids. But you don't have to stop what you're doing right now. So it's important, but it's not urgent. I don't have to stop right this second. So you want to spend 60 to 70% of your time in that category, okay? Then you have the bottom column, you've got the not important, but it sure feels urgent. Somebody just texted me. Or a spam person just called. Feels urgent, just let the phone ring or something like that. How many of you struggle with ignoring the phone when it pings for a text? Okay. You know what, it drives me nuts now. I can't ignore it because I'm like, most people know that I'm taking care of my mom right now, so they don't bother me unless it's something important. And they also know that I don't have to answer right away because I might be doing something with her where I can't answer my phone, so I'm a little bit better at it. But here we go, 7:30, how's your attention? So I've done some things, like with certain things like Facebook and those kind of things, I've literally just turned the notifications off. You know, they keep saying, oh, you need to turn the notifications off because you don't want to miss anything. Oh, yes, I do. There's a ton of things I want to miss. Thank you very much. So I've turned it off completely, and Facebook is only when I'm sitting, relaxing, and I've got a few minutes to look at it. I don't want it pinging at me all the time. The only thing that actually pings at me anymore is texts, because right now, obviously, most of the people who text me right now are something important. But again, everybody in my world knows if I don't answer right away, it's because I'm taking care of something with mom. So I've lost that urgency thing. And then you've got the not important and not urgent, sitting and scrolling through the social media and those kinds of things. Maybe some of you guys have wisely protected your children from that, please do as much as possible. I mean, I know from the blue screen, affects vision on all this stuff. I could, let's see if I can remember the title of it. I didn't put it in here. The commercialization of children. If you want to watch something that will make you feel very chilled, you watch that video clip. And if you want it, like I did put a notebook here somewhere if you want to I can send you the actual link later, or you can go to my Facebook. Like I said, I don't have it on my Facebook page, but this whole video talks about how, starting about 1984, when the laws dropped about not being able to do ads for kids, till now, and how much companies have intentionally switched all of their advertising to the child. Because the child is the influencer, and the parent is the buyer. So how many times have kids seen, I mean, I don't know, maybe you guys have protected your kids enough so that you don't have this issue, but maybe some of you have experienced this where you've let them see something online, and then every day, Mom, I gotta have, because they've seen it. They can get up to somewhere between 1,000 and 3,000 messages per day, getting them to try to buy stuff, if you let them on the technology for any length of time. Or, like, the pop bottles, or like anything. Everything is designed to put it at you. And when you watch this video, in one place, one of the ladies says, we want to make money by any means possible. So they don't care. Like, they're actually advertising to almost like women in the womb, where, hey, play this, because your kid will hear it before they're even born. We're living in an inundated world. Protect your kids. So, I can talk about this till I'm blue in the face, but if I get you to stop for a few minutes and actually work on something, that's what the plan is right now. So I've given you a list. I just realized the people who have this one don't have that list. And I've given you a chart to let you, and you can talk with computers for a second if you want to. You can actually practice for a couple seconds with that list and stick things where you think they ought to go on your time thing. But that's where this is the practical side of this thing. I've given you some samples that you guys might think of something else. Let's see. Here's the homework, rest of the leftover handouts.
There, on the table. Yeah.
Okay.
And we need like a color pencil or something?
So those of you who don't have that list, you can grab one of these. Who needs the list?
Thank you so much.
I didn't think about the fact that I didn't put the list with the... So just take a few minutes and think your way through, what do I think in my world is important and urgent? And you might have something that you personally think of. So like, I want you to do this for probably at least 5 minutes. And then we might kind of swap stories for a second. Does anybody else need this? Did you have the list?
They're sharing.
Okay, all right. I try to think of things that homeschooling parents might have going on. Yeah, go ahead, talk to each other a little bit. Oh, did you get one? Okay.
Is there one?
Well, yeah, that's what
I guess it depends.
Is urgent like emergency or is it urgent?
Oh, there's your little timer.
Okay.
Paying attention, engaged or not?
Okay.
Yes.
It's like the urgent timing important is like the out of the normal.
Yeah, they're kind of like emergency types of things.
Oh, okay.
So someone calls you, needs you to go.
Right. Oh, say that again?
It's not 5 o'clock time to make dinner urgent. No.
Well, that's what you need to
That
decide.
feels
I think
very
if there's been things going on all day and you
urgent.
didn't kind of budget your time and throw the crock pot on earlier, then yeah, that ends up becoming an important urgent, which that's why sometimes you do need the 10 you need it in that spot.
Which is
right?
why we need to time manage so that
Yeah.
we're not on the 10% stress
That's
out.
I'm like 90% in the urgent.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so this is giving you a chance to think and talk your way through this a little bit and absorb what you do with your time and what, like, I mean, for me, most of the time answering silly texts or sitting on Facebook, although I'm intentional with what I do with Facebook. Very intentional. If you look at my pages, they're always about ministry or helping other people rather than silly stuff. So how many of you are going, oh, if feels urgent, but technically it's not as important as I was thinking about when I think about those things.
I think like I live as if 90% isn't that important and urgent. And then I do, the other 10% is just not important at all and not urgent.
Okay.
And it's not right. It's not right.
Other observations when you're thinking your way through this?
Bible time. We were trying to discuss whether it was urgent or not urgent.
I can't do a day unless I've read my Bible before I start the day.
So does that make it urgent?
For me, it's urgent and important.
Yeah.
But it's not an emergency urgent.
No, yeah.
It's, yeah.
It's a plan important.
It's a
It's a plan important, right.
So I think you need another category.
But that's good, but this is making you think your way through this stuff, right? That's the whole point of this little exercise, is to get you thinking about, things that I consider urgent. Yeah,
I guess to me, urgent means I'm late.
okay.
Or like,
You're changing your
it has to be
schedule.
done now, or else
something.
it's an emergency, such as hospital.
Right.
Right, so like for me, I think.
Or like a dirty diaper. That's kind of, like, it needs to be done now.
Right.
So most of it I put as important, but not urgent, because hopefully I'm ahead of the ball. Most of the time I'm not, which means it's suddenly all urgent.
Yeah.
But in an ideal world, it's not.
See, this is where you might have thought of some others that I didn't put on there. I was just kind of splashing down